So, title choices. I wrote down things that you said that would make a great title. Unfortunately, my favorite didn't get recorded, so we can't use it because our thing is to always use a title that the guest has said during the episode.
Oh, gosh.
So, here's my list.
Yeah.
Just tell me which one you like. How dare you? One of these damn days. We didn't learn that in church. Hope springs eternal. You can fake it. I still like it. I'm here to be me, or talk to yourself.
Did I say that?
You said all of those.
You can fake it. I'll still like it.
Okay.
I don't know why, but that sort of appeals to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
well, and
a lot of us are tap shooing through life anyway. So.
Well, and it's curious enough that it'll grab people to come listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The one that didn't get recorded, but I really liked was "Put Me Through the Ringer, but Give Me a Payday."
That's even better if you want to use that.
But we didn't record. It wasn't actually said in the episode.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But that's okay. You can fake it. I still like it. It's still a good title.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. I'm still recording, so let me quickly record that. Welcome to season 7, episode 10. You can fake it. I still like it. This is Written on the Edge. I'm Vance Bastion here with my co-host, S.A. Baz Collins.
Hello.
And we're really glad you're here with us. Our guest today is William Jack Sibley. A versatile writer, Sibley's work has spanned from writing dialogue for television's Guiding Light to serving as a contributing editor at Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, to seeing his work produced off-Broadway and regionally. Author of a dozen screenplays, 2 novels, 1 newspaper column, and a freelance journalist, he's completed his 3rd work of fiction, Here We Go, Loop de Loop. Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Feels like old times. Good to see you.
I've got this weird sense of deja vu.
I know, this is deja vu.
For those of you listening who don't know what's going on, we missed a record button and are doing this for a second time.
We'll get it better. We'll get it more right.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah, we've got it down now. So, Bill, how'd you become a writer? Where did that fire start?
I really became a writer after college. And as I was saying, I studied film at the radio, television film at the University of Texas in Austin, which was fantastic. I mean, they had sound stages bigger than MGM. They had all the equipment. It was wonderful, but you had to be self-motivated. There was nobody going to hold your hand. And I did a student film, and it was well received. And that was really a kick. Because I wanted to be a director. That was my aim. And I was trained how to be a gaffer, how to be a grip, how to do sound, how to hang lights, all that kind of stuff, which was great. And it was good to know, but I wasn't going to end up being Alfred Hitchcock by hanging lights. So I wrote a play, won an award at Southwest Regional Playwrights Competition. And they did it at the Ritz Theater in Austin, Texas. And it was kind of a little hit. And I got hooked. I started writing after that and all kinds of jobs. I wrote travel articles for newspapers. I was a contributing editor to Colores Triunfales, Flying Colors magazine for Braniff Airlines. Remember Braniff?
Wow, that is reaching back.
Yeah, I had a lot of those squirrely jobs. And but it's good because you learn to produce in a myriad of situations, which is good.
Well, we're here today to talk about Here We Go, Loop de Loop. So let's tell folks about it.
Here she is, folks. Woo-hoo! Here We Go, Loop de Loop. Now run down to your nearest independent bookstore first, and if they don't have it, you don't get off and order it. it's a very entertaining book. It's gotten really good reviews. I haven't gotten one stinker yet.
Nice.
Truly. Amazon and Barnes and Noble have been very, very generous, and the greatest compliment I've ever gotten, and I got it again on this book, is "Damn you! I picked up your book last night at 10 o'clock when I got into bed, and I didn't finish till 7 o'clock this morning." And I'm going, "That's good. That's good. That's what it's supposed to do."
Go have a nap now.
Yeah. So, keep the pages turning. I'm not writing, Shakespeare here. It's funny. It's interesting. You will learn something about people, and you'll have a good laugh, and probably maybe a tear or two. There's a couple of poignant scenes in there. Mix it up.
You said you
Let's
aren't
address them
Shakespeare.
all.
You said you aren't Shakespeare, but the relationships in your story are kind of Shakespearean.
As one reviewer said, it's the marriage of Larry McMurtry, author of Lonesome Dove, Terms of Endearment, Last Picture Show, Brokeback Mountain, who won the Academy Award.
Mm-hmm.
It's Larry McMurtry meets now I'm blanking on it. Larry McMurtry meets
Midsummer's
Night Dream. I was going to say Long Day's Journey into Night.
Well, that was your journey writing, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's tell folks about the characters.
So it is the story of a small town in Texas, and I'll get into a little more detail. The richest family in town is a man dying of cancer, and his 40-year-old daughter, who's returned from New York after a career, managing art galleries. It didn't quite lift off. She'd never met anybody. She's not in a relationship. She's come back to Texas, and she starts having an affair with the white trash, low-class neighbor down the road named Pettis. But the sex is phenomenal. And into the mix, I don't know if I should give this away, but her late brother is involved because of someone who shows up. I don't want to give it away here. Anyway, what happens is she is in love with the late brother's friend. He is in love with the low-class cowboy. The low-class cowboy is in love with the daughter of the richest man in town who's returned from New York. What's going to happen?
Dun, dun, dun.
Pick up the book and read it. You'll enjoy it. It's funny as hell, and it goes fast, and it should be a damn movie, frankly.
Nice.
Well, there you go. From your lips to Netflix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a number of reviews have said this is a movie. Which is great.
And you have personal experience living in both New York and Texas.
Oh, yes.
So you were able to breathe life into both aspects of the story.
Yeah. So when I was writing for Guiding Light, I did it for about a little over a year and a half. And they called one day and they said, well, first of all, let me tell you how Guiding Light happened.
Yeah,
I was inducted into the New Dramatist, which is next door to the Actors Studio. There is an actors studio for playwrights called the New Dramatist in New York on 44th Street. And you have to be invited to join. You can't say, hey, I'm here. So it was a big honor, and I got in, and I was really excited. And I did a lot of workshops and met a lot of actors, and it was great. Then the director of New Dramatist called me and he said, we got a phone call today from Procter & Gamble, and they're really interested in talking to you about writing for one of their shows. And I said, what show is this? And he goes, it's The Guiding Light. And I said, I'm not a soap opera. How dare you? And he said, no. They like the way you write dialogue. And I thought, well, how much do they pay? that sweetened the deal because I was broke. And there were 4 of us. And they said, you write the way people talk, which is really the way they sound, not actually it's a fine art to it, and it's having an ear. So again, I did that. They canceled one of their soaps called The Secret Storm. They had The Secret Storm, As the World Turns, The Guiding Light, Search for Tomorrow. And those writers had been doing it for decades, and they had seniority. So they said, if you want to hang out, we'll see if we can't call you down the road. And I said, hang out in Manhattan, no money. Fortunately, and a lot of things happen this way, John Schlesinger, who directed Midnight Cowboy, among other things, got a hold of one of my screenplays called Where All the Rattlesnakes Are Born. And he optioned it, and he flew me out to California. And I lived in his home in the Hollywood Hills for 3 or 4 weeks. We worked on the film, 4 producers and myself. It was a master's class. It was a phenomenal experience. And then he came in one morning and said, "Dear boy, I'm returning to England to do a new movie with Madonna and Rupert Everett. And as soon as I get back, we'll do your film. But I must do this one first." And that was the kiss of death, because nobody saw the Madonna Rupert Everett film. Did you see it? Neither did I.
My best friend, right?
Yeah. And I don't know what, I never saw it. I was enraged. And so you're only as good as your last picture in Hollywood. And unfortunately, John never did another movie after that. So anyway, I ended up in Hollywood, and Arthur Hiller, who directed Love Story, optioned it. Diane Ladd optioned it. At one point, it was set up with Laura Dern and Billy Bob Thornton to do it. I mean, Hollywood. So one of these days, one of these damn days. That's a good title.
No, yeah. We've had Brent Hardinger, who writes screenplays and has gone through that round. And he says, it's wonderful to be optioned, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to hit the screen,
Yeah. Well, I kind of felt like living in LA, it was like Woody Allen said, and I'm paraphrasing here, you're waiting for that phone call to ring, and I don't mellow. I go rotten like an avocado. And, it's nerve-wracking waiting for something to happen. At least in Texas, I can pull dead cows out of the tank. I don't have to worry about that.
Okay, you might have to explain that.
Oh, yeah. Well, now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
So there is a scene in my book that actually happened to me. True story. I come from 5 generations of cowboy ranchers in South Texas. And part of my job is to go down to the ranch every week. I'm leaving right after this interview and check on things and see how they're going. We're going through a drought right now, and it's pretty serious. And you got to make sure there's water and there's something for them to eat. It's every day, every week. So in the summertime, and it gets really, really hot, the cattle sometimes get into these tanks, these ponds, to cool off, and they get stuck in the mud, and you have to pull them out. So one time I was down there, drove up in the pickup, got out, took off all my clothes, walked into the tank, put the rope around the cow's horns, pulled her out with a pickup. She got up, she strolled off. Life is good. But I'm covered in mud. I am caked in mud. And so I said, I'm not going to put my clothes back on. I'm just going to go in the truck. I'm going to drive home. It'll be fine. Between where I was at and the highway is a gate that is shared by the guy next door to me. In years of going down there, I have never seen him once at that gate, except this time. He showed up, and I'm there bare ass naked, locking the gate. And I just waved, and he goes, "Hey." And I went, "Hey." And he drove off, and that was the end of it. And that was a completed Texas conversation. And I'm sure he's told everybody he knows about that. It was a visual.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, your muse was working for you.
Yeah.
She thought, looked down and thought, this will end up in a book.
Yeah, this can end up in a book. Yeah, definitely. I'm working on a book right now, and it's amazing how things happen in real life, and you're at a point in the book where you're going, I don't know what's coming next, and then something happens to you, or dreams it, or you see it, or you there's some vision. I don't understand it, but it
Well, you
works.
hear it a lot from historians. They often talk about like the Tudors were much more dramatic than anything anybody has dreamt up,
Mhm,
in real, on TV and in series and stuff.
mhm.
They invented their own drama. They
Yeah,
had a lot of stuff going on. And I think you're right. I think true life stories or stories that are rooted in actual
sure.
events have that ring, and I think that's what helps people resonate with it. It's like my big fat Greek wedding. We're not
Yeah.
all Greek, but we can identify with those things. And I think when you write stories about environs and cultures that have stereotypes, it's fun to break those and show people that we're really more alike than not.
Well, and like when I'm reading just for pleasure, I want to go somewhere. I want to go somewhere that I haven't been. If I am reading about what I know and you get it wrong, I'm going to nail you.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know much about outer space, and I'm not a huge science fiction fan, but I'm open. Usually, when I go to the bookstore, I go straight to biography, autobiography, and history. I'll read anybody's story. Everybody's got something to say, and I don't know why it interests me. I'm on the board of the Texas Historical Foundation. I'm a history nut. I love history, and I love how history is not ever written in stone, even though it physically looks that way. Things change all the time. We're going through this thing with the Alamo right now in San Antonio, where everybody wants it. There's this faction that wants it to be John Wayne's Alamo, and it'll never be anything but. And we're finding out all this stuff about the Indians that are buried, the Native Americans that are buried everywhere surrounding the Alamo. I mean, why are we not recognizing this? It was a Spanish mission for a century before the Alamo. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent here. Don't get me going
No,
about
that's
history.
no, that's fine. But I think those are the things that are often, it's history is written by those who are the conquerors.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wonderful live performance by Joe Leguizamo, who did this whole thing of Latin history for
Yes.
morons.
Yes.
Brilliant, because it really lays out all the things in history you never were taught, because it wasn't from the white European perspective.
Exactly.
And I think when you find out those stories, you're like, wow, there's so much more out there that can be written, which is why I hate reboots. I hate when people do reboots of something,
Yeah.
especially when there are so many stories that have yet to be told.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited more and more from stories of people of color, because we're getting those narratives. And I think it only makes all of us as writers that much more engaged with our craft, because there are great stories still yet to tell.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Henry Louis Gates' show on NPR, or no, on PBS, about ancestry.
Right.
And
finding your roots.
Yeah, and he'll get these movie stars on that are, expecting everything to have been, the King of England or whatever. And then they find out that their ancestors were slaveholders. History is not supposed to be pretty.
No,
it is real. I don't know why people freak out. I have an ancestor who was a brigadier general in the Confederacy, and he was at West Point with Custer. I mean, the guy went from Louisiana he was going to conquer the West, the goldfields of California. And he was working his way westward with a band of people. And he was captured in Galisteo, New Mexico, and the whole thing was blown up, the supply wagons, everything. I mean, it's a real tragic story. He was an alcoholic. They were all alcoholics in the Civil War. But it's an amazing story. Amazing story. I love the stories of history, the real stories.
The real story. Yeah, let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
And I think it also gives you a lot more colors to paint with when you write from that perspective. I find it very, I like to do alt history, where I'm taking the premise of what is, but then the what ifs that didn't happen, and for me, that's really a nice place to play in, because you have the historical references, but you also have the narratives that weren't told, that were part of that whole process, so anytime you can write stuff like that, or like you did with your town in Texas, and you have all these different characters that are pretty rooted in who they are, but then you put them through the ringer I'm thinking, and actually get them somewhere else. So it's a cultural shift. People go through something, and that's what people read. They want to be taken somewhere and told a fascinating tale.
So Here We Go Loop to Loop is my third novel, and they all sort of take place in small Texas towns. And this is the last one. I may be writing about Midtown Manhattan next, but the first one was called Any Kind of Luck. The second one is from Romans 8:28 in the Bible. It's called Sighs Too Deep for Words. When you sigh, it's not sighs, S-I-Z-E, sighs too deep for words. And of course, Here We Go Loop to Loop. And what they have in common is, well, when I wrote the first book, the New York publisher said, gee, we want you to do another book. And I said, that's great. He said, we want you to do a sequel to the first book. And I said, no, I said everything that I wanted to say in the first book. I'm on to something else. And they go, well, we want a sequel. And I learned that in publishing, they want to know where to put you on the shelf at Barnes and Noble. You've got to be Stephen King. You've got to be Danielle Steele. You cannot be Truman Capote and write In Cold Blood followed by Breakfast at Tiffany's. What? We don't know what to do with you.
Right.
So anyway, lost that publisher, went through publishing hell, lost my agent, my manager died. It's like doo-doo happens. And, it's been an interesting journey. Usually when I turn in a book and I'm working with an editor, they go, well, there's not a whole lot to change here. In fact, the first book I turned in, I didn't hear from them, and I didn't hear. And I thought, well, they just hate it and they've thrown it in the trash. I finally got a phone call from the publisher and he said, have you read your contract lately? And I was just shaking. Page 49 of the contract. It was like, something I overlooked. And I said, no, I haven't. He said, well, you're required to turn in 100,000 words. And I said, what did I turn in? And he said, 80,000. And I said, oh. And he goes, but don't worry. I've done it all for you. On page 36, tell me more about the mother and what she's wearing and why she said that. On page 39, and he went through the whole book. I finished it in a weekend. Brilliant editors are a gift from God. And I've had 2.5 brilliant editors out of 3 books.
2.5?
2.5.
Yeah. And I'll leave that.
Were they a small person or?
Yeah. Well, one was not as good as the other 2. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But
okay.
They rarely ask me to change anything. They just go, give us more. So that's a nice thing.
Excellent. Yeah.
So I think just before you talked about the publishing, you were about to tell us about the small Texas towns.
Oh, okay. So what I was about to tell you, and I got halfway through it, I moved back to a small, to the ranch, which is outside of a small Texas town, 340 people, with my Brazilian partner in New York. And we lived out at the ranch in a 1-bedroom, ranch house. Gave a big Christmas party the year that we got there, and everybody in town came. And what I learned was, if they know who your people are, if they know where you came from, and they knew your granddaddy, and they knew your great granddaddy, you're allowed to be as eccentric as you want to be. And if that means sleeping with a man, well, we didn't learn that in church, but that's all right, I guess. People are funny. They just are afraid of you if they don't know you. That's pretty universal.
Did that color the town in your novel?
Then? I wanted to do a program years ago, bring a gay person to lunch, and meet a gay person, stop being ignorant and meet a gay person and have a conversation. I mean, a lot of this thing that goes on in Texas about, we can't talk about gay in school. They don't know any gay people, or they read something.
Or they do, but they would. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the media did us any favors years ago when I was coming out. Incidentally, I didn't have a party. I'm still waiting for that.
No, but your toaster oven did arrive, right?
Every gay thing on TV was about gay pride in San Francisco, and every guy's wearing a bra and a girdle and high heels and makeup. And I'm like, I don't know any of these people. That is not the entire gamut of being gay. Wonderful for you in San Francisco. Ain't gonna work in bumfuck Texas. So yeah, it's taken us a while, but I think it's all behind us now, with a lot of bumps in the road ahead, but we're looking in the mirror backwards now, even in Texas.
Stay vigilant.
Yeah. Right? Always. Yeah.
So one of the other themes in your novel is unrequited love, and I'm curious as to why that's always so appealing.
Because we always want what we don't get. And sometimes even when we get what we want, it's the wrong thing. Idealize, I mean, look, the drug that you get when you're in love is so incredible. And you want that feeling to last forever. It doesn't. It becomes something else. Doesn't mean you don't love them, but it's not like that first falling in love thing when you're on the cloud.
All endorphins, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And, a lot of times, I used to say when I lived in New York, I could walk down the street and fall in lust, 6 times every morning. That's not a good way to base a relationship, but the lust part was working. Relationships take a lot of work, and there's a lot of give and take, and I've been moderately successful and not so successful with some. And it's just something that really intrigues the hell out of me. And everybody has those feelings. And we all want something idealistic, whether it's the movies or books or music or whatever, you listen to a song on the radio that you used to hear when you were dating, the great one. And it just, you're there, you're back. It's like, oh my God, it's heavy stuff.
Yeah. So do the characters in your novel find happiness? I'm not asking about sunset and
Does
happy.
anybody find happiness?
Do they?
Yes. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to them, but I have reached down from heaven and given them all what they wanted.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And the reader has to make up their mind whether this is a good thing or not such a good thing.
Sure.
Which is how life is.
Yeah.
Funny thing, that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Often. So one of the other questions that your publicist sent me was to ask about dysfunctional family affairs, how they're handled with grace and charm without anybody getting shot. What the heck is that all about?
Are they ever handled with grace and charm? Well, like everybody that I know, I come from a dysfunctional family, and it is the norm. And we do the best we can with our little tiny selves, and we adjust and we learn and we grow, hopefully. And, your family is the launching pad, and hopefully they've given you enough fuel so that you can make it to the next planet and start again. And do it the way you think it should be, which no one ever gets right. Otherwise, God, we'd be boring. But hope springs eternal. Boy, does it ever. We all try in our own way to do the best we can,
It's true. Anything else about Here We Go Loop to Loop that you want folks to know?
Well, if you know anybody in Hollywood or New York or anywhere that wants to make a movie, this is it. I'm telling you, this is a funny, great, it's Hallmark without the flowery, corny BS. It's real. It's the real deal. And people get hurt and people fall in love and people are funny and people are grotesque, and it's called life. And it is a damn good read. How about that?
Do you have a Dreamcast?
Oh, Dreamcast. Yeah, I was working on this not too long ago. Our alleged supposed wannabe governor of Texas, Matthew McConaughey, would play Pettis, the redneck rancher. The richest man in the county would be Tommy Lee Jones, who lives here in San Antonio. His daughter, I think, should be played by what is her name from Titanic? That was the girlfriend of
Winslet.
Kate Winslet. Yeah, she's really good with accents, and these are all early 40s people, except for Tommy Lee. And anyway, I think she'd be really
he thinks
good.
he's early 40s.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. And the Mexican boyfriend, the heartthrob that comes to town, should be played by Gael Garcia Bernal. And that's my cast, but you can cast it any way you want to.
Nice.
As long as it's made.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about these artists, please like and subscribe so you get alerts for new episodes. If you want to support us, you can do so on Patreon or hit our merch store and wear something to support the show, whether it's a funny drag queen, a hilarious puppy with a saying, or something historic with a little bit of shade. Baz is working on a bunch of new designs. Just look for them. Just hit the top of our website and go to the store.
Yep.
So what have you got coming up? Are you doing any other appearances, any book conferences?
I just finished teaching a class. We have an organization here called Gemini Inc., and it's a group of writers. They get amazing writers from everywhere. I went to a class a while ago where Margaret Atwood walked in the door.
Wow.
There were 8 of us, and it was like having this personal one-on-one with Margaret Atwood. And I was just like, oh my God. But they get amazing people like me. And I just finished teaching a class on writing dialogue. And it was fantastic because it was the first hybrid class that they'd done in a year where we had 7 people in the room and 5 people on Zoom, Chicago, Santa Fe, the Panhandle of Texas. It was great. And people were bringing in their writing, and we were talking about writing and talking about dialogue and how to get it up on its feet. And it was great because I haven't done it for a while. I've taught classes in dialogue, but hadn't done it lately. And that was exciting. That was fun. And I look forward to doing things like that. And people are really jazzed about, writing. And that's a good thing,
Yep.
Nice.
I should have mentioned I'm on a video right now that came out yesterday. I'm in a book called Viva Texas Rivers, and they assigned all these writers to a river that meant something to them. And I got the Nueces River because I grew up on the Nueces. And they were asked us each to do a video on the river reading from the selection of the book. So if you go to my website, it's there. And
Nice.
I'm on the river reading from the book. So.
All right. Any final words of wisdom?
So if you are working on something and you are writing and it's a slog, lie down on the floor, stretch as hard as you can, and talk to yourself. If you're dealing with a character you don't understand, this helps me more than anything. Have an actual verbal, out loud conversation in the voice of the character that you're dealing with, because you'll hear what's false. You should be able to hear, and you can develop that ear, and then read it to yourself. That's when you cut through all the fat, because if you're dolling it up with a lot of unnecessary junk, you're going to hear it and go, no, we got to get the lawnmower in here. That's too much. So them's my words of advice.
Nice. All right, folks. Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about these new artists, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. We'd like to extend a huge thank you to William Jack Sibley for being with us. Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you all. It was my pleasure. Truly.
Awesome. Now, head to your local independent bookstore, or if you have to online, pick up Here We Go Loop de Loop and get ready for your story about a love circle in Texas. And we'll talk to you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Buy the book. Buy the book.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. Bum's Rush and Melody, dear.